Okay.
I want to tell you about my younger brother, David. David was born at the deep end of the gene pool. I was born in the shallow end. David is taller than me, smarter than me. He has a full head of hair. He's such a good person that he's a vegetarian. I eat pastrami. He has lived an exemplary life. He has a wonderful marriage, 3 great kids, beautiful grandchildren. He's a successful attorney in Philadelphia who has loyal and prosperous clients. David has always been a nachas machine. He's one of the best people I've ever known. If he has imperfections, I don't know what they are. Now, I've always known that he's taller than me, smarter than me, and has more hair than me, but I only found out recently that he's braver than me. David went to a No Kings rally. A No Kings rally insists that America should not have a king. There should be a president, not a dictator. There should be checks and balances, just like the Founding Fathers intended. When people asked me about going to a No Kings rally, I said that I wouldn't go because I saw some of the organizations that were involved. I feared that there would be a dimension of the rally which would be anti-Israel and pro-Hamas, and I wouldn't go because I won't be involved in anything that may support causes that make my blood boil. David, however, went to such a rally in Philadelphia, knowing full well what he was going to experience. He knew that there would be people denouncing Israel and telling lies about it, but he went anyway because he does not want a king. He went by himself, but not inconspicuously. He brought an American flag and an Israeli flag, and as he walked by himself, he waved the American flag and the Israeli flag. As you would expect, people said all sorts of things to him, but he marched on. When he called me to tell me about it, what bothered him was not the people who were saying those terrible things. He's an attorney. He's used to being involved in conflict. He knew that he was going to get that garbage. What was disappointing to him was when people came over to him and whispered, "I'm with you. I'm on your side. I'm pro-Israel," and then slinked away. They wouldn't walk with him. They were too scared. He called me about his despair at the fear that some of us have in the face of all this hatred. During these holidays, I'm going to be talking about America and Israel, among other topics. But if there's an image I want you to come away with from these holidays, it's not me talking about these things. I just talk the talk. My brother David walks the walk, literally, even when he's alone in the middle of hostility. Now, to me, he's still my cute little brother. So I see an 8-year-old kid waving those flags and walking, and I'm touched. But I want you to picture a brave man proudly waving those flags at a rally where there were people who did not want him there. I want you to think about that image because David's act exemplifies what we need to do and what we need to be. Unafraid, unintimidated, unworried about what others think, confident in our beliefs. So my first model is my brother David in real life. I want to bring you a second model from a famous novel. Second model from a famous novel. Did you ever read Where the Crawdads Sing? Where the Crawdads Sing is a 2018 mystery novel by American zoologist Delia Owens. The book topped the New York Times bestseller list of 2019 and 2020. It is nothing short of one of the best-selling books of all time. It describes the life of a young girl named Kaya as she grows up completely by herself in the marshes of North Carolina. She's isolated and hated and mocked by the community. She's called the Marsh Girl. The book follows an investigation into the apparent murder of a local celebrity. Crawdad is an American slang word for crayfish. Crawdads cannot sing, but when Kaya's mother encouraged her to explore the marsh, she said, "Go as far as you can. Way out yonder where the crawdads sing. Far in the bush where critters are wild, still behaving like critters." When she's left all alone in her home, Kaya must survive, and she has nobody to help her. She must defend herself. She must think for herself. She must be one step ahead of everybody else. She understands the real world of nature and people, and that only the strong survive. It turns out that she simply has no choice. She must use violence to protect herself and bring justice against the evil person who wants to destroy her. And she does what she must do. She's tried for murder. But even before the trial begins, the town is sure that she's guilty because they've always believed the lies about her. The book keeps us guessing, but we know that whatever she did or did not do, she did what she had to do. Why was this book such a huge success? Because we realized that in this scary world, we must respond with force and power and fight evil when it threatens our very survival. We always knew that nature was wild, harsh, and cruel. Now we know that the so-called civilized world can be just as harsh and just as cruel. Where the crawdads sing is not way out there, it's right here. In the last year, we've been upset and angry and confused over the continuing rise of anti-Jewish hatred in this country and the world. We are Kaya. We are the Marsh Girl. We're rejected. We're dismissed. We're hunted. Every Jewish person around the world has awakened to a new reality of fear and protectiveness. After the horrors of the October 7th terror invasion of Israel, a global anti-Semitic movement emerged, marching through our cities, celebrating the barbaric violation of Jewish bodies, and unleashing violence against Jewish individuals and institutions. And in case you think this was a response to Israel's war against Hamas, and I want to emphasize this global anti-Semitism began all over the world on October 8th, before Israel had responded in any way. Like Kaya, Israel was tried and convicted in the court of world opinion before it had even acted. And that was just the beginning. Even after 2 years of this, there's an important truth that we are finding hard to accept, or even to admit to ourselves. War has been launched against the Jewish people. I want to tell you about an important book that was written 50 years ago, but is unfortunately incredibly relevant today. The War Against the Jews was published in 1975 by the historian Lucy Davidovitz. The book discusses the Holocaust of European Jewry during World War II. Davidovitz turns World War II and the Holocaust upside down. She points out that towards the end of the war, Hitler was determined to eliminate Jewish populations even when he should have been moving troops to the front. Hitler delayed rail cars, providing supplies to German frontline troops in the Soviet Union so that Jews could be deported by those rail cars from Russia to the death camps. At the end of the war, that madman cared more about killing Jews than defending Germany. Do you get the point? It's like World War II was all a smokescreen so that the Nazis could do their evil work. That madman, obsessed that he lived in a universe of Jewish demons. If you think the world is filled with demons, destroying the demons becomes the most important thing in the world. Now let's move to the last couple of years, when we have seen the new war against the Jews. To understand the nature of this war, we must understand the profound connection between the Hamas invasion on October 7th and the anti-Semitic protests around the world. It's not simply that one triggered the other. The two crises emerged from the same crazy universe, one in which hatred of the Jewish state or Jewish people take on infinite importance, providing infinite license to override any principles of morality. Every Jewish person is demonized, so any attack, even the barbaric October 7th, is celebrated. Because anti-Semitism is a conspiracy theory, it claims to explain everything. Words are borrowed and distorted beyond all recognition. Genocide, apartheid, colonialism. Responding with rational arguments, as I've learned the hard way, gets you nowhere when the person's a hater. You can argue back that Israel has never practiced apartheid and that 500,000 Palestinians work in Israel every day right now in good jobs, unlike in Lebanon and Jordan, where they cannot work in such jobs. You can argue back that the Jews are refugees from Europe and the Middle East and Africa and are anything but colonialists. You can point out that evacuating civilians in Gaza so that they won't get killed is the opposite of genocide. But you get nowhere, because those loaded terms are weapons aimed at Jewish people. The war is not only against Israel, it's against every Jewish person in the world. When the Israel Defense Force won victory after victory and emerged stronger than ever before militarily, our enemies turned their wrath towards a more vulnerable target, Jewish people in the rest of the world who don't have an army to protect them. Listen to the chants of globalized Intifada. The Intifada was a violent terrorist program against Israel that included bombing civilians on buses. Now they want to globalize that terrorism. River to the sea means kill every Jewish person between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean, another Holocaust. But listen to the hate-filled screams, and you will hear that it means every Jewish person between every river and every sea. Anyone who thinks that October 7th was a glorious act of justice and resistance, rather than the evilest barbarism, is cut from the same cloth as Hamas, part of the same crazy universe, even if they sit in the halls of Congress. Jewish people everywhere must now see themselves as being in a state of war. We've seen this movie before, and we don't like how it ends, so we can't let it end as it has before. We recognize these mobs from generations past, from the pogroms of Russia to the Arab riots in British Palestine to the Holocaust, and going back even further to the Crusades, the expulsions from Spain and other countries, the blood libels. Just as persecutors of all the generations of the past invented justifications for their violence toward Jews, so today's mob uses lies about Israel to justify attacking anyone and anything Jewish. From London to Istanbul, from Brooklyn to Beirut, from Detroit to DC, from Boulder, Colorado to Harvard, Columbia, and Yale, the message is the same. They pretend that they're calling for justice and freedom, but their real target is every Jewish man, woman, and child. And there are a lot of Jewish people who break my heart in two, because somehow they've sold their birthright and joined with our enemies in a way that is not just naive, but self-destructive. I'll say it again, this hatred is why the explosion of anti-Semitism happened, not as a response to Israel's response to October 7th, but before it had even started. Demonstrations erupted across the world after October 7th, proving that there's something deeper going on here, an overflow of hate-filled joy that idolizes Hamas. Sure, a lot of the protesters and politicians insist that they're not anti-Semitic, but only anti-Israel. You can believe them if you want, but I don't. There are so many terrible things going on in this world, like Putin trying to start World War III in Europe, but all of the attention is on Israel, and it's all Israel's fault. People ask me all the time, why do so many people believe so many lies? Lying is a creative act that allows a person to paint a picture that is more exciting than reality. Lies inspire high arousal emotions like fear and surprise. Lies can be repeated quickly and simply, while the truth, which is often more complex, cannot be explained easily. Processing fluency means that people believe lies that are repeated over and over, especially when they never knew the facts in the first place. Then there's confirmation bias. People like information that confirms their pre-existing beliefs. Social media algorithms create echo chambers where people are exposed to information that reinforces their existing beliefs. There's something about Israel that makes people believe all the lies. They point to settlements and borders and wars, but scratch beneath the buzzwords and you'll find something deeper. Discomfort not with what Israel does, but with what Israel is. A nation this small should not be so strong. Israel has no oil, no special natural resources, a population barely the size of a mid-sized American city. Israel is surrounded by enemies, hated in the United Nations, targeted by terror, condemned by celebrities, boycotted, slandered, and attacked, and still Israel thrives in military might, in medicine and security, in technology, in agriculture, in intelligence, and sheer unbreakable will. Israel turns desert into farmland, makes water from air, intercepts rockets in midair, survives wars that were supposed to wipe it out. The world watches all this and can't make sense of it. So they do what people do when they witness strength they can't understand. They assume it must be some dark magic trick that gives the Jews this kind of power. Because heaven forbid that it's really because of heaven. You see, by all historical standards, the Jewish people were supposed to disappear a long, long time ago, thousands of years ago. That's how the story of exiled and hated minorities is supposed to end. But the Jews didn't disappear. They actually came home, rebuilt their land, revived their language. This is not normal history. It's not just political, it's biblical. There's no rational explanation for how a people can return to their homeland after 2,000 years. There's no possible road from gas chambers to global military power. And there's no precedent for surviving the Babylonians, the Romans, the Crusaders, the Inquisition, the pogroms, and the Holocaust, and now being stronger than ever. Our history doesn't make any sense unless you believe in something beyond history. This is what drives the world crazy. Because if Israel is real, if this Marsh girl, this hated nation is somehow thriving, then God must be in the story. History isn't random. Evil doesn't get the last word. That's what our enemies can't stand. Because once you admit that Israel's survival is a miracle, everything changes. You realize that you're witnessing part of something eternal. Now let me say the hardest part. Every day I'm in anguish about all the violence and the suffering. As Israel acts on its impossible choices, you don't have to agree with everything Israel does to create a safe future for its people. The difference is that you and I can separate support for Israel with disagreement over the current prime minister's actions. I think about the hostages every day, many times a day. I fear that they are not the priority that they should be. I have a lot of problems with the prime minister. But I see that a huge percentage of Israelis do too, from the generals on down, and they are out in the streets protesting all the time. I can separate what a prime minister does from what the country is meant to be. But others do not do this. They take every action they don't like and completely condemn Israel. So we have to be careful, because our public disagreement with Israel gives cover to the haters. And as a student of history, I know we cannot know how history will look back on these events. I'm open to the possibility that nobody I know seems to consider that Netanyahu may be right in attacking Hamas once and for all. Even during these last few days, we've seen how strong Hamas still is. Would you allow Hamas to rebuild so that it could do what it swears it will do, massacre Israelis again? Before you join the whole world in condemning Israel, don't be so sure that anybody really knows what Israel should do differently. We are not the Jewish people of the last 2,000 years who are powerless. We have power, and nobody wants us to use it. You see, Israel is held up to this astonishing double standard that no other nation is held to. Israel is expected to stop the war it didn't start. Israel is expected to give aid to those who want to kill them. Israel is expected to make peace with those who refuse to make peace. Israel is supposed to be the perfect victim, not to fight back. But here's the thing. We should not agree with this double standard. And there's a new paradigm. No more fear. Bring it on. Can we Jewish people understand that we are in a new stage of our history? Look at the countries of the Middle East, how they fear Israel now. Remember how scared we were of Iran? Now Iran doesn't even control its own airspace. Israel and Syria, of all countries, are negotiating a security agreement. Why is this? Let our enemies fear us for a change. Let them come to the peace table because they have no choice. Because if they have a choice, they will never come to the peace table. We can shift the balance of fear. We can protect Jewish people everywhere. We will work for better security for all Jewish communities. We will recognize our enemies. Don't be afraid to use the word enemies. Every person who actively takes part in demonstrations demonizing Israel, who refuses to condemn Hamas's actions, who calls for the annihilation of Israel, is an enemy of our people. We must recognize our friends. Jewish people do have friends, and the current crisis has provided a vivid litmus test of this friendship. Recognizing such friendships means crossing political and religious divides. It no longer matters what political party or religious group somebody belongs to. We need to create new alliances and muster all the support we can get. We don't have to trust anybody's motives. We should focus our support for those who both support Israel and American democracy. And we must not just ask for our rights, we must demand our rights. Those who hold positions of power, including many university administrators, who sit on the fence because they fear the mob, should be made to fear the side of moral clarity even more. On campuses, we must demand that Jewish students be treated like every other group. Those who violate behavioral standards must be punished, and the hypocrisy of negotiating with vandals must end. We must think carefully about how we give. Besides donating to so many worthy causes in Israel, we also have to donate to Jewish campus groups and educational and advocacy efforts. Now, what's the goal of all this? We just want to feel safe and confident so that we can take part as equals in every part of life we choose. In Where the Crawdads Sang, Kaya has to protect herself against the lying, violent local hero. And everybody believes that the outcast they call the Marsh Girl killed him in an evil way, because that confirmed their bias against her. But she did what she had to do, and she outsmarted everyone, because she knew that in this world only the strong survive. My late father, may he rest in peace, would have admired Kaya. When she found herself isolated and all alone in the world, she learned that the so-called civilized world just like the world of nature, is filled with hatred and violence. My father was a rabbi, and he was a strong person who had definite beliefs and opinions about everything. He would be enraged at the attacks on Israel and the Jewish people. And I can hear him say that, yes, we've seen this movie many times before, but we are no longer powerless. We can fight back only as the strong survive. Now, I know that my father was proud that his older son became a rabbi, but there's nothing I've ever done that would have given him as much pride as his younger son waving the Israeli and American flags at that rally. He would say, that's what we all need to do. During these high holidays, I'm going to be talking about how we need to stand up for the best America, especially when we disagree with what's happening in America. And I ask you to stand with Israel at this moment that is so complex and so heart-wrenching. Stand up for the best Israel, which is what so many Israelis are doing right now. Wave those flags, be proud of who you are, because what are flags? Those flags represent dreams, a dream of a democratic America and a safe and thriving Israel. Wave those flags, help make those dreams come true.